54,000 combat wounded veterans could finally stop losing money the government already owes them. And in the very same bill, future veterans with tinnitus could lose a benefit worth about $190 a month. One piece of legislation does both at once, and there's a single line buried in it that decides whether you come out ahead or behind. We'll show you exactly where you land.
Hey everyone, Leo here. The bill is called the Take Care of America's Veterans Act, House Resolution 9237, and it was introduced on June 10, 2026.
Today we go deep on what this bill actually does, who it helps, who it hurts, and the one nuance most of the headlines are getting flat out wrong.
This is Tiffany, and here's what threw me. It is not one idea. It bundles roughly 60 different bipartisan bills into a single package, which is how something this good and this controversial ends up in the same vote.
Sara here, and the part that makes veterans nervous is right there in the structure. The new benefits in this bill are paid for in part by accelerating rating cuts that hit other claims.
Right, give with one hand, take with the other. But before anyone panics, hold one fact close. As of today, this is scheduled for a House floor vote. It is not law yet.
Let me put you where this is actually happening. This building is the United States Capitol, the seat of Congress, and this is where House Resolution 9237 heads for its floor vote. Both chambers of Congress meet here. The House on one side, the Senate on the other. For a bill to become law, it has to clear both, and right now this one has only been scheduled in the first of those two rooms.
And because it's bundled under what's called suspension of the rules, it needs a 2/3 majority to pass. That's exactly why all those 60 little bills got packed together, to build a coalition big enough to clear that bar.
Sara, before I move on, one viewer question keeps coming up, and it's the right one to frame this whole video.
Yes, and it's the question under every post about this bill. People are asking, if this bill passes, will I lose my disability rating for tinnitus or sleep apnea? Or is it only new claims?
So let's answer the big shape of this before any single piece. The cleanest way to understand House Resolution 9237 is as one big trade.
And I want to lay the two columns side by side because that's the only way the trade makes sense. Let me put it on the board for you. On one side, the wins. Real money flowing to veterans who have been waiting years for it. On the other side, the pay for, the cuts that fund part of it.
Start with the wins column because it is substantial. The headline win is concurrent receipt for about 54,000 combat-disabled retirees through the Major Richard Starr Act. Then surviving spouses who remarry get to keep their benefits. Families of catastrophically injured veterans get about $10,000 more a year, and survivors of veterans with ALS get an increase too.
Now the version going around online says the cuts are the whole story, that the bill, quote, slashes benefits for millions. So let's drag the pay for column into the light. The bill speeds up rating changes for tinnitus and sleep apnea, two of the most common claims veterans file. The VA estimates that saves up to $57 billion over 10 years, and that money helps fund the wins on the left.
And notice how the two columns are linked. The cuts on the right are not random budget trimming. They are the literal funding source for the wins on the left, which is exactly why you cannot judge one column without the other.
But here is the line that decides everything, and it's the one the scary headlines skip. Read both columns together. The cuts are written to hit future applicants, not the veterans already rated today.
And that distinction is the heart of this whole episode. Whether you win or lose under this bill comes down to which column you're standing in, and whether you've already filed. So let's walk each side, starting with the biggest win. One thing before the next part, and then we move right on. If any of this is clicking, tap that like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell for the next one. It takes a second, it costs nothing, and it helps more than you would think.
Let's start with the single biggest win in the bill because it has a name and a face. It's called the Major Richard Starr Act. named for a combat veteran who fought for this fix until the day he died of cancer.
And the rule it fixes has an ugly nickname. Veterans call it the Wounded Warrior Tax. To see why, you have to meet the kind of person it hits.
So meet Sergeant Diaz. She was medically retired after 12 years when an IED blast ended her career. 12 years, so under 20. That one detail changes everything about her paycheck.
Because she was retired for a medical reason before hitting 20 years, the law calls her a Chapter 61 retiree. That category is exactly who the STAR Act is built for.
Here's the trap she's living in right now. Watch what today's law does to her money, line by line.
Her military retired pay is about $1,800 a month. That's earned, and it shows up on the books.
Then the offset hits. Under today's rules, her retired pay gets reduced dollar for dollar by her VA disability. That entire $1,800 is wiped out before she sees it. A program called CRSC gives part of it back, in her case roughly $1,150. So out of the $1,800 she earned in retired pay, she nets $1,150.
Which means she's still down about $650 a month every month, purely because she got hurt before her 20th year. That gap is the Wounded Warrior Tax, and it lands at $1,150 net today.
Now here's the fix. The STAR Act says she draws both in full retired pay and full VA disability, no offset, no clawback. The roughly 54,000 veterans in her exact situation finally get whole.
And to be precise about who already has this, because the comments always ask, retirees with 20 or more years of service and a 50% or higher rating already get full concurrent receipt through a program called CRDP.
Exactly. The gap was always the under 20-year medical retirees. They served, they got wounded, they got medically retired, and then the math punished them for not lasting to 20. The STAR Act closes that gap.
So that's the headline win, and honestly it's hard to argue against. These are people the system already promised. Now let's turn to the part that pays for it, because that's where this gets genuinely uncomfortable.
Here's the part that pays for those wins, and it's why veteran groups are fighting this bill. To fund the new benefits, House Resolution 9237 accelerates 2 rating cuts the VA first proposed back in 2022.
Let me name them precisely because precision is the whole game here. The 2 conditions on the chopping block are tinnitus and sleep apnea, and each one changes in a different way. Tinnitus today is a flat 10% standalone rating. In the rating schedule that's Diagnostic Code 6260, and it pays about $190 a month on its own.
And the proposed rule deletes that code entirely. Code 6260 goes away. Tinnitus would no longer stand on its own. It becomes a symptom folded into an underlying condition, like hearing loss, which is often rated at 0%.
Sleep apnea is the second one, and it works differently. Today, if you use a CPAP machine, you automatically qualify for a 50% rating under Diagnostic Code 6847. That's a big rating tied to one device. The proposed change scraps the automatic 50 and moves to a symptom-based scale, 0, 10, 50, or 100%. So if your CPAP controls it and you have no daytime symptoms, you could land as low as 0 to 10%.
Now here's where I have to bust the biggest myth flying around about this bill, and it matters to every single person watching who already has one of these ratings. The version going around says this bill cuts 1.5 million veterans who have these ratings right now. That's the scary number in every post. And on the rule as written, it's busted. Here's why.
Both proposed rules grandfather current recipients. The tinnitus notice says, in writing, it will have no impact on veterans currently in receipt of service connection for tinnitus, and existing sleep apnea ratings are not automatically reduced.
So let's be honest in both directions. If you are already rated for tinnitus or sleep apnea, the rule as written does not touch you. That's the part the opposition's headline leaves out. Tiffany, I can see you've been holding a question on this, and it's the one every viewer is thinking. Go ahead and put it to us.
I have, because it's the practical one. If I file my tinnitus claim before any final rule takes effect, am I locked in at today's rating?
Generally, yes. And that's the key. A rating granted under today's schedule is the rating you keep. But it's not nothing for the people coming after, because the ones who genuinely lose are future applicants. The veteran separating next year who hasn't filed yet faces the new lower schedule, and that's where the $57 billion in savings comes from.
So the honest verdict on the scary number is half true. Yes, the schedule gets cut. No, it does not strip current recipients on the rule as written. The fight is about tomorrow's veterans, not today's.
And that's the cleanest way to hold this whole bill in your head. It's a transfer that moves money toward today's wounded retirees and survivors, and pays for part of it by lowering what tomorrow's tinnitus and apnea claims will be worth. Both things are true at once. So who is actually fighting over this bill and why? This is a real split, and it does not break down the lazy way you'd expect. Let me bring it to the news desk and lay out both sides fairly. Leo, you've got the support side, and Tiffany, you've got the opposition. And here's what's genuinely interesting. Both sides actually agree on the most popular piece. So Leo, start with where the support is strongest.
The support is overwhelming on the STAR Act itself. More than 330 House members and nearly 80 senators back it. That is not a close call, that is a landslide of co-sponsors. And it crossed a line you rarely see. The Defense Secretary publicly endorsed the STAR Act at an April hearing, breaking with members of his own party who'd blocked it on cost. When the Pentagon says pay these retirees, that's a real signal.
So if everyone loves the STAR Act, Tiffany, where does the opposition even come from? Push back on Leo here.
Here's the catch, and it's the whole fight. The opposition isn't against the STAR Act. The DAV and the VFW both support paying those retirees. What they refuse is paying for it by cutting future veterans. The VFW put it bluntly. A grateful nation pays its debts to veterans. It does not send them the invoice. Their argument is simple. Don't fund one group of veterans by taking from another.
Hold on, Leo, before you answer, that's a strong line. If the country wants to pay these retirees, why does another group of veterans have to fund it? Is there another way to pay for it?
There is, and even supporters admit it. One senator argued the Defense Department should fund concurrent receipt out of the roughly $1.7 trillion military retirement fund instead of taxing future disability claims, so the how-to-pay fight is real.
And that's exactly the opposition's point. The ranking member, plus the union that represents VA workers, say the package cuts at least $60 billion from future veterans. They'd rather pass the STAR Act clean, with no offset attached.
But here's the counter, and it's honest. The American Legion calls the package a pragmatic path. Under budget rules, a new benefit usually needs an offset to move at all. Supporters argue a clean STAR Act has been blocked for years, and this bundle is the realistic way to finally get those 54,000 retirees paid.
Which is a fair point. The choice may not be this bill versus a perfect bill. It may be this bill versus the STAR Act staying stuck for another decade. That's the uncomfortable part nobody on either side likes to say out loud.
So let me settle where this actually lands, fairly. Both sides agree the 54,000 retirees should be paid, so the honest disagreement is only about the pay for. One side says funding it by lowering future tinnitus and apnea claims is wrong on principle. The other says it's the only realistic path to a fix that's been stuck for years. And that's the rare debate where both sides are arguing in good faith for veterans. The record shows broad support for the benefit and a genuine, legitimate fight over the bill that delivers it. Hold that as we turn to what you should actually do. So what do you actually do with all of this? Let's turn it into 4 concrete moves, depending on which veteran you are.
Move 1 applies to everyone, and it's the most important. Before you act on anything you heard today, check the live status. This is a fast-moving bill. As of today, it's scheduled for a House floor vote, and the Senate hasn't scheduled it at all. A bill that's scheduled is not a bill that passed. Go to congress.gov and search House Resolution 9237 for the real status.
Move 2, and this is the calm down move. If you already have a rating for tinnitus or sleep apnea, breathe. On the rule is written, you're grandfathered. Nobody is going to mail you a letter cutting a rating you already hold.
Move 3 is the one to take seriously. If you have tinnitus or treated sleep apnea and you have not filed yet, the proposed changes hit new claims hardest. I won't promise you a deadline because no final rule exists yet, but I'll be honest about the asymmetry. Filing under today's schedule, if your claim is genuine and ready, locks in today's rules. Just don't file a weak or unprepared claim to beat a clock that hasn't even started. A denial helps no one.
Move 4. If you're a combat-disabled medical retiree with under 20 years of service, this whole bill might be the best news you've had in years. Watch the STAR Act piece specifically. That's your win, and it's the part with the most momentum behind it.
So here's my honest verdict, and I'll plant a flag. On balance, the STAR Act fix is the right thing to do. These are 54,000 veterans the system already promised and shorted for years. If I had to vote on that piece alone, I'd vote yes without blinking. But I won't sell you the bundle as pure good news, because it isn't. The honest catch is the pay for. Funding today's wounded by lowering tomorrow's tinnitus and apnea claims is a real cost to real future veterans, even with the grandfather clause.
And the cleaner alternative genuinely exists. Pass the STAR Act on its own and fund it from the Defense Retirement Fund with no offset on anyone's disability claim. Whether that version can actually pass is the real question, and reasonable people disagree.
So who is each path for? If you're one of the 54,000, the bundle is your shot, and waiting for the perfect bill could cost you years. If you're a future applicant for these two conditions, the clean standalone STAR Act is the version that protects you.
And that tension, paying one group of veterans without quietly charging another, is the thing we genuinely could not settle today. So we're handing it to you. So here's the whole bill in one breath. House Resolution 9237 pays 54,000 wounded retirees what they're owed, helps survivors and catastrophically injured families, and funds part of it by lowering future tinnitus and sleep apnea claims. A real win with a real catch.
And the single thing to do tonight is the easy one. Search House Resolution 9237 on congress.gov and see exactly where it stands, because by the time you're watching this, the status may have already moved.
My favorite moment today was the receipt that zeroed out Sergeant Diaz's retired pay. Next time, we'll break down concurrent receipt versus CRSC in full, so you know which one actually puts more money in your pocket.
If this helped you make sense of a confusing week, do me one favor and hit like and subscribe so we can keep building this VA benefits library together and reach the next veteran who needs it.
Every point we hit today is one someone needed this week.
This is Isabella. Thanks for watching and signing off.